Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua and I'm going to be your presenter today. I hope everyone can hear me okay. It's promptly 1 p.m. Eastern Time today, and so we're going to get started on our webinar, our topic. Before we get started on the actual topic at hand, our Church Windows Vanco interface, basically importing donations from Vanco, just a couple of things. If you've not attended a webinar event before, click the little red arrow at the top sidebar of your control panel there to minimize that little control panel. If you're using a single monitor, or if you've got a dual monitor set up, just drag that off to your other second desktop, again, just to get it out of the way and get the full visual presentation of the webinar event. There we do have, if you have questions for us, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar. Rachel's here helping me answer questions today. We had a really great registration for this event. Folks, we're really glad you're choosing to attend this. But if you have questions, please type those in there and she'll do her best to get those answered for you. And if I see something come in and she'll shoot me a question if she thinks it's worthwhile me kind of putting that out there for everybody. Also, there is a handout for today's webinar event. It is a document that the Vanco Payment Solutions folks sent to me after yesterday's event that basically details exactly what we're going to look through in Church Windows today. That information is very similar to our workbook information on importing donations, which is found on pages 11 through 16 on our Donations 103 or D103 workbook. Theirs is just specific to Vanco. It uses Vanco as the key name there as opposed to importing donations. But in essence, it all functions and very much acts the same exact way. Okay. And finally, before we get started, the recordings or videos of both yesterday's event and today's will be available on our website here sometime in the next few days or so. So please, refer folks at your church to these. And we're very, very grateful and appreciative to the Vanco Payment Solutions folks there for having spent the hour with us yesterday. I learned a whole lot about Vanco Payment Solutions myself as a Church Windows technician and trainer. And boy, they sure do an awful lot. And I'm sure some of you here today already have a relationship with them, and I'm sure very pleased with that. But today we're going to look at going in and posting or entering a donation specifically from Vanco. The import donations function versus something from Vanco, they're 95% similar to one another. So just by way of explaining it is, of course, that as technology continues to grow, technology makes it very simple and much easier for our members and our visitors to give to our churches. And part of giving to churches these days is giving electronically. And that's what Vanco Payment Solutions does, is they deal with, allow and transfer funds, directly from your giver to the church's account, without having to necessarily bring in the cash or the check and put it into the offering plate every Sunday if they wish. They can have it pretty much taken out of their account and transferred to the church's account anytime they wish. And so it's becoming more and more of a popular and more of an important feature in the software, and Church Windows now supports the importing of donations from, in this case specifically, Vanco. So if we click our import donations down arrow here at the top, we see a variety of companies that Church Windows donations support the import from, including a text file. If your company that you're using isn't included in this list, of course you could use the general text file, but we're going to be looking at Vanco today. So when we click on Vanco, it opens up our import donations from Vanco. And one of the things that I like to point out about this is we notice there are 4 tabs here across: imported donations, unmatched items from import, set up givers, and set up giving accounts. So there's a couple of different ways that this can be addressed. If you go, okay, we've got, 20 different people that are giving through Vanco to the church, and a certain set of giving accounts, you can obtain the information from Vanco directly that allows you to go right into this set up givers and set up giving accounts and link someone or link a giving account with their respective, in this case, Vanco Fund ID for your giving accounts. So when you say, okay, we're going to allow or permit our givers to give to these half a dozen giving accounts through Vanco, that Vanco assigns those giving accounts a particular number. Then you would come in here and you would assign these Vanco fund IDs, as we clearly see here that I've highlighted. Okay. Now, if I'm not mistaken, these Vanco fund IDs, you can set those up and assign those. I think the Vanco gives you the option to either set those numbers up yourself or that they will systematically assign them. And a similar function is true when we go up into set up givers. When a person decides to enroll with Vanco, whichever one of their options they offer or choose, they're assigned a number through the Vanco customer number system that then would be, we would bring that in here and we would enter that number. Okay. There are 4 components that are part of the file that donations needs to see in order for a batch from Vanco or from any of them to be imported, and that's a date, a giver, a giving account, and an amount. Those are the 4 critical and important fields that we have to see populated in here in order for the import feature to work and function successfully and correctly. Okay, if any one of those components is missing, then it's not going to allow us to import the file. One part of the important data or information is missing, and the system's not going to assume for you that it's for a particular giver or a particular giving account. It just simply says, I cannot import this batch until all of that information is set up or populated properly. Okay? But again, you can come into this set up givers and set up giving accounts based on a report that you run from Vanco once you know who's giving and what they're giving to, okay, in advance. Now, if that doesn't occur, again, the system is not going to let you or permit you import a file without the appropriate information, okay? So we can clearly see here we've got some Vanco customer IDs set up for people that are giving electronically, and we do have looks like about 4 giving accounts set up, that we're basically saying, okay, these are the ones that are currently setting up, that we're giving to currently, 1, 2, 3, and 5, okay? So now I've got a batch now from Vanco that I'm now ready to import into the system for, say, the month of April, okay? So what I would now do then is I'd go into my import donations from Vanco, click on the Import Donations tab. We'll click on the Select Import File button. Let me get my highlighter out here, draw some focus on that. Right here, Select Import File. And then once I've chosen that button, it opens up essentially a browse window. Okay? And then I need to browse to the specific file that Vanco sent me for the month of April, wherever you've managed to save that from the email, or whether you go online into your account with them and just download the particular month's transaction file. In many cases, they'll just email it to you, per your request. I think they offer an enormous amount of flexibility in terms of how this occurs, and so I think it's just a matter of the settings you set up in your account with them. But simply once I've browsed to my location of my file, I'll call it I've called the file 2017 Vanco example. Okay, once I click on that, and as usually it's identified, like if I'm not mistaken, the files are specified by date in there. We've just created this one, but it's in essence a text file, a .txt file. Okay, and so once you've browsed to the location of the file that they've sent you for that particular date or week or month, you highlight it, click Open. Then when we click OK through that, it then brings us over here to our import donations and shows that we've got 2 dates in here, the 2 dates for April that we're trying to import. So notice here now it says it will go to unmatched items for import. So we notice here that we've got 2 different problems with our particular batch. We have a giver who's not linked over there, so there's a record in our file from Vanco, a giver who decided to give to through Vanco this particular month that we don't have set up under our setup givers, and we have a giving account that perhaps somebody, maybe not even this same person that's chosen to give to, that isn't associated with a particular giving account. Okay? So it's not going to permit us to import any of these donations or either one of these batches until we get this problem resolved. Okay? It's all or nothing, folks. Okay? So once the following items are in the import file but are not recognized, they will need to be matched before posting. Okay? So I would need to either then go back to my Vanco, log on, go in there and find out who this particular Vanco ID belonged to. And then once I have that, I would simply click the down arrow and I would choose the particular person that I had in my database, or I may even have to add them to my database if they're new. Okay? So we know we've gone into there and we're going to say this belongs to visitor Morgan Smoot. And it tells us right here that this giver already has been assigned the ID 418-493-1147. Would you like to override that? So if we notice here, and I've done this deliberately, folks, is just because I want you to see that the system's pretty smart this way, that the Vanco ID is 618-493-1146 that's in the Vanco, and ours is 1147. So it sounds like maybe I just made a mistake when I entered their Vanco customer ID. Okay, so I'm going to say yes to this. Okay, if I go, oh, well, that isn't Morgan Smoot, I've got another problem, I would simply click, I'm just pointing out here, the Vanco ID number versus this number here are different by one digit. Okay, so if I were to go, no, doesn't belong to Morgan Smoot, I'm going to go, okay, who does that belong to? So then I would go to my next person in the record once I had that, and I would choose the person that it did belong to. And notice here it didn't pop up with that message. So it's now going to assign this Vanco ID to Sebastian Fry on my setup givers automatically. All right. Then I need to come over to my Vanco ID and I need to go, okay, what giving account is associated with my Vanco fund ID number 0004? Okay. So we're going to say it's our food pantry. Okay, so we're going to choose that. Again, didn't get a message. If I did try to choose one similarly, where if I went up and did to something like my general fund right here, it would pop up with a similar message to the one that I had before. Hey, this account already is assigned to ID number 001. Would you like to overwrite it? So we're going to say no. And we're going to again go back to our food pantry. Okay, no message popped up. So I've now got these validly linked to a giving account and to a particular giver, and it'll save those automatically for these folks. Now I can jump back to save my changes. I'm sorry, I did forget to click the options at the bottom of those. Sorry about that. You do have to click save, but it is, again, smart enough to recognize that I didn't save it. So it asked me, do you want to save these? So yes, now I'm saving them to those records. Now when I go back to my import donations button, I will simply click the button here to the upper right. Again, let me grab my highlighter. Create donations right here. Create donations. Then when I do that, it goes through its little gyrations and it brings in my imported batches window for donations in here. And again, if I want to see the breakdown of my givers, I can simply click the plus sign. Verifies their name and their envelope number, their amount, their payment method. And same thing down here. And assuming that's all good, I would simply go down to the very bottom of my machine here, or my screen, and simply click the Post Batch button. Okay? And that will literally just import or post each one of these batches into donations. Oh, let me change my drawing tool and click Post Batch. We'll go back up to the 20th first. Again, very common that the giving through Vanco occurs on a date that's a non-Sunday date, so it does pop up with a message that says Thursday 4/20/17 does not fall on a standard posting date Sunday. Do I want to continue? I'm perfectly okay with that because it's going to be more in keeping with my bank reconciliation in accounting, so I'm going to click yes. And then when I click on the remaining date and click Post Batch, same window will pop up. Both of those dates were non-Sunday dates. And I click yes. And folks, those batches are posted now in my donations module. I can then now go to transfer to accounting up here And notice both of those April dates are here waiting for me to post and transfer over to my accounting module. Okay, that stuff's all remains the same, other than maybe I might need to change my asset account, to post it over to my bank account in accounting, so the fees can be assessed and what have you, and post it over to my checking account. Okay. But again, there's nothing too terribly complicated about this procedure, folks. The software is, again, fairly smart with regards to definitely it knows what it needs, but there is some help it may need from you if, again, there's something in the file that they send you that you're not entirely clear about, okay? Or that it's not clear about. And again, you may need to go back into the Vanco system and obtain the necessary information to complete that import function. So, yeah, this wasn't a terribly long or detailed or complicated topic, so that we're going to end the topic discussion there. Let me see if there are questions out there here that I need to deal with or address here. How are processing fees, donations made by the donor handled by the Vanco's upload? Nicole, that's a great question. We might have even had a couple of those other ones in here, the folks that were asking a similar question. Donations in no way imports anything that would be considered a negative amount. All that the donations module will ever import is the original amount of the gift that they gave. We would then have to transfer it over to accounting and deal with any of the fee processing over there. Victoria was asking if a member gives $100, but it's supposed to be split between two accounts. How does that show up? Again, Victoria provided the member specified when they recorded it through donations that it was to be split between two different giving accounts. It'll import it that same way. Donna's asking, how does one access the Vanco handout? That's a great question, Donna. If you click the plus sign or the little arrow next to your handouts, the link to the PDF file is right there. And no, you do not have to have the accounting module in order to import into donations. You don't have to have accounting. Martha's asking, will there be a comment that it came from Vanco? No, the program doesn't do that, Martha. The only thing that might indicate that it is from Vanco would be if you that it's an EFT payment transaction versus cash or check. So that's the payment method would certainly be a good indicator that it was brought in from Vanco. But there's no comments or any description that's entered about that. I know Vanco has end-to-end security, but once you import the text file, is that information vulnerable on our system? Well, I'm sorry, Holly, I'm not sure how to answer that. I mean, it's no more vulnerable in the Church Windows database than any of the other rest of the data. I mean, there's certainly no encryption in the Church Windows software with regards to that. So as far as that Church Windows does not include any encryption in it, I suppose it could be considered vulnerable. But so are your Word documents and your Excel files and everything else. As far as I'm aware, those are not encrypted either. So in my best understanding, vulnerable is yes, I guess it would be, because again it's not, but again it's only vulnerable with folks that would be looking for it, or no more vulnerable than anything else that would be on your machine. When will there be another webinar specific to Vanco fees, compatibilities? Could not attend the one that was scheduled for yesterday. Amy, that event did not cover any of that fees and compatibility question. That is probably going to be something that either we already have out on our website, or we'll be hosting another event on that or dealing with that in future. But I don't think we have anything scheduled on that yet. But yes, we will have yesterday's event out on the website at some point here in the next few days. I post the donation fee through accounting as an expense. Yeah, that's exactly right, Joette. That would be the correct way to do it. Our church has an annual silent auction. I do not want to set up giver accounts for 100 people I will never see again. I simply record the total for the auction and donations. Is there a way to import without setting up individual giver accounts? I mean, if they're being posted to specific givers on that, Catherine, I'm not aware of a way to do that. Um, I mean, you'd probably have to go in and edit the text file to change all of those givers from one giver, from all of the separate givers down to one to the one that you're wanting. That's probably something you'd need to call Church Windows technical support about. I'm sorry. James is asking, how did you know to pick Sebastian Fry in Food Pantry? Again, I would have gone into my Vanco system or log on in James and with my Vanco account and looked and to see what the Vanco system showed me in terms of who the giver was that gave and what giving account they had assigned it to. Janet, when using the mobile apps, there are associated fees. How do those get entered? Yeah, again, we're not going to cover that in today's webinar today, Janet. I know there's documentation out on our website about recording creditor fees. And again, we're probably going to have that in a different webinar event if we do wind up having that at some point in future. Again, place a call to technical support if you're unclear how to deal with that. Martha, is it possible for Sunday giving with Vanco, credit card swipe app? Yeah, absolutely, Marla. That would have been something that would have been covered in yesterday's event. You bet. Vanco has, card swiping capability and everything else. You'll want to revisit the video of the event from yesterday when we have that available here. Hopefully, sometime next week. Or contact Vanco. They're delighted to hear from you and talk with you about it. They definitely offer all kinds of capability for that. Does Vanco post a donation via its deposit date or its process date? I'm not sure, Nicole. Honestly, that would be more of a question for the Vanco folks. By all means, if you call them, whether you have an account with them or not, they'll be happy to talk with you about that. I joined this webinar late. Is the webinar available? Yeah, Doug, you'll have that available on our website here again in the next few days or so. We don't have donations linked to accounting. Do you have to do this Vanco giving? Not at all, Doug. You don't have to use. You can enter your donations from Vanco manually if you wish. Can you explain about the fees again? Do they need to be posted separately? Yes, Pamela, again, in a brief explanation, the fees are not recorded through donations when you import the file. Those would be entered with the total amount that was given, and then the fees would be assessed in accounting separately. Again, we're not going to go into detail on that. I would think that an auction would be not tax deductible. Martha, I suspect you're right, but you'll probably need to talk to a tax professional about that. Yes, but how does it flow through Vanco if they do an electronic payment? I guess just not post that part of the batch and enter it manually. Yeah, again, I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question, John. That one might be something you need to call us about. Yeah, because, if it does flow through Vanco, either you're deciding to use the import file, the text file that Vanco is producing for you, then you would need to set up your givers and your giving accounts so the file can be imported, or you're simply going in to enter donations and recording and entering the batch manually from a Vanco report. Catherine, again, changing the text file does not work. CW will not import the file. Okay, well, that, again, Catherine, that would be something that probably you would want to. It will import the file. I went in and manipulated my text file in order to get those changes or those things that it detected. So it does allow you to edit the text file. You have to make sure it's right, but it will permit you to edit that. You're most welcome, John. I hope this has been helpful for everybody. I think Jeannie's asking, does the contributor get the full amount for tax purposes? Yes, again, the Church Windows does not import the amount of the fees into donations whatsoever. So if a person gave $100 and there was a $3 fee assessed by Vanco, the giver is going to see $100. Church Windows is not going to record the fee until you record that in accounting, through your journal entry or what have you after it gets transferred over to accounting. Donations never sees the fee. Okay? Thank you, Lisa. All right, folks, we've gone a little bit long here. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for everybody. Again, we'll have these recordings out here in the next few days. Keep an eye out for that. Well, again, so we hope it's been helpful. We hope to see you at another Church Windows webinar event, and I'll go ahead and end the webinar for everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.